What's up, everybody? We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get started. First things first. Right now, I'm a little self-conscious because I feel like it's time for a haircut because the sides are starting to get long. More on that later. Second thing, I got a new background today. I'm switching it up. I've seen that a lot of YouTubers have kind of a background, their own branding, kind of represents who they are, their personality as a YouTuber, and they represent that in the background. I hadn't had one yet, and I've kind of just been messing around, so I'm going to start trying some different angles and see what I end up liking. I think the light behind this one might actually be okay. Next, I use a Sony Alpha. It's an A6300, and it's really frustrating that it doesn't have a flip screen. It's one of the things I thought about a lot before I got this camera, comparing it kind of to the Canon M50, which has the screen that completely flips around and reverses, so when you're doing a vlog like this, you can actually see what you're filming. This doesn't have it, and the camera's all the way up against a wall, so I literally have to just guess what my what's in the viewer right now and what this camera's actually picking up, which is a little bit frustrating. Next thing, the coronavirus, COVID-19, it's taken over. I first read about this kind of getting started just barely into January. I've really been following it and tracking it, and I would say at least once a day I will read an article, watch a news update or something, and I've been doing that for the past couple months. So I've watched this thing spread from when it was just in Wuhan to now where it's global and on the verge of becoming a global pandemic. And I've watched all of this emerge, and now I live in Seattle. I'm in King County, and the first person to die of the coronavirus, COVID-19, in the United States was actually just about 10 to 15 miles away from where I live. So now I'm watching that story develop with other people that might be affected in that area. And I'm thinking, if this were to hit us the same way it's hit Italy, and the same way it's hit Iran, and the same way it's hit China, obviously, and now South Korea, it's really starting to take over countries, and if it does take over the United States, I'm kind of at the epicenter of that location. So it's got me really thinking about that. What do you do if this becomes the same sort of epidemic that it did in China? How does the US respond to that? And not only how does the US respond, but think about your life as an individual or your family. What will you do if suddenly we have to, stop transportation between cities? What if this becomes a really, really significant thing in the United States that could last for weeks or months? I live on a boat, and my first thought is I will get myself away from any possibility by limiting my interactions, by simply taking the sailboat and leaving, maybe going to an island for a while. And I'm starting to think, should I be purchasing goods? Should I be purchasing and storing food on board in case something like that were to happen? Generally, I feel like I'm already pretty isolated being on this boat in a marina. I'm not in an apartment complex or something like that. But I definitely am starting to think about, what opportunities would I have if I really, if the city kind of shut down and life as we know it in the United States really started to change, what would happen? And I am genuinely curious, especially if you're watching this and you're in one of the western states like California, Oregon, and Washington, who have been hit the hardest. What are you doing? Are you thinking about any prep stuff? Have you purchased hand sanitizer that's now sold out across Amazon, or respirators? What are you doing personally? Comment below. I'm very, very curious to see if anyone else is really starting to think about what precautions need to be taken for this, just in case it really hits the fan. What happens if and when leaders, politicians, government leaders come down with this virus and possibly die off? One thing about the coronavirus is that it tends to have the greatest impact on people who have had pre-existing conditions or weren't in the best health. And I'm looking at the next election like, man, if Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump get coronavirus, they're probably both going to die and not make it through. That's not funny. But it could legitimately be a significant shock to America if things were to get that crazy. And on a global scale, I wonder how leaders are protecting themselves from getting this, because if the leaders were to start being affected by it, then it seems like everything would really go crazy. And now that I have mentioned Bernie Sanders, I just want to say I'm a huge proponent of Bernie Sanders. I not only love his message and the actual politics behind what he wants to do within the legal system and the political system, but what I really love about him and admire is that there's this group of Democratic candidates, and after each loss, each one of them takes that opportunity, and Trump does as well, to kind of bash, well, here's what's not good about Bernie Sanders, and here's why this other candidate fails. But if you listen to Bernie Sanders after losing in South Carolina to Joe Biden, he got on the stage, he started his speech by congratulating Joe Biden on his win, and then he got right down to the point. He went back to, this is what my message is, this is what our message is, and this is how we want to move forward. He didn't spend all this time going up there just to kind of talk shit about Joe Biden because he won. He just has such grace and such poise, and I feel that is extremely important in a leader, because the leader ends up being somewhat of the face, the personality of the entire country. And right now we have an asshole that represents us, someone that doesn't care about people, that has such little empathy, and that makes all other people, all other countries look at us with a connotation that's who we are. And I resent that. And what I desire is to have a political leader that is inclusive, that wants to work with people, that wants to support everyone, that wants to include all of humanity in the conversation, so that we can all progress as one. And it really is this stark contrast between Donald Trump and this separatism that he represents, this way of dividing people, us versus them, the other guys are bad, the media is bad, the Democrats are bad. This mentality is not only less intelligent and immature, but it also creates so much strife, not only within ourselves, but in how we're viewed across the entire planet. I love Bernie. I feel that he would do such a great job. I'm really not impressed by anything that Joe Biden says or does. It really seems to me like more of the same, like the Hillary Clinton of 2016, just this same old shit that we've already done before, and just going back to it, power seeking power for power's sake. While Bernie is a movement, he represents an ideology, he represents progress, he represents change, and that is something that is really beautiful. I have done a little bit of investigation into Pete Buttigieg. He's really the only other candidate that seems enticing to me, and I like the way that he talks. Again, he has some class and some elegance to him, and I like that, and I'd like the world to see us in that light. I think he would fit into the global presidential positioning, kind of alongside the Canadian and the French presidents, these young guys, kind of hot shots, but seem to be kind and generous. And I think that Pete Buttigieg would fit into that mix really well and represent the younger generation of leadership and what we feel in that kind of the millennial perspective almost. Wouldn't it just be hilarious if Trump and all of his legacy and all of this, racism and homophobia and all of this stuff, if he ended up losing to a gay guy from Indiana? I just think that would be so hilarious and telling if that were to happen. So look at comments on a Trump speech, and then look at comments on a Bernie speech. And on a Trump speech, what comes from that is just hatred and negativity, and either like this guy sucks, or no, you suck, or Democrats are idiots, and the media sucks, just all this like crap, negative, low vibration energy. And then watch Bernie's speech on YouTube tonight from South Carolina when he congratulates Joe Biden, and all of the comments are what this movement represents, and how Bernie is classy, and how Bernie says congratulations to Joe Biden and how has such a positive message and an inclusive message, and that alone shows the stark contrast between what Trump represents and what Bernie represents, and then all these other Democratic candidates in the middle are just more of the same. They represent this middle ground, and in order to beat something that's on one extreme, you have to bring at it the same intensity and possibly the same extremity that in order to match it. And that's what Bernie is to Trump. He's the opposite, and it's almost a love beats hate thing. And it's difficult to put it that way and really categorize a person as like bad or and good. But when you really look at it objectively, you can almost sum this up. I like this idea, love trumps hate. I'm gonna wrap it up for today. I don't even know how I'm gonna edit this. I don't even know if I'm in the box correctly. I don't even know if it's focused on my face. I could have just talked for 15 minutes and it could all be a bunch of hopefully not. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. This video is really last minute. It is actually after midnight on Saturday. This definitely won't be posted till Sunday, which means technically I missed my first week of the year where I did not post on time, but I'm not too upset with myself because I'm only one day late. So anyways, have a good week. I guess I would just say have a good week.